Welcome to the PeopleWise Solutions Podcast. I'm Biya, an intern at PeopleWise Solution, your host, and today we're driving into an intriguing question. Are human resources or HR professionals healthcare workers too? This is really a topic that resonates deeply with me, given my background in healthcare and now my journey in human resources. And it's really amazing to see the similarities between these two fields in terms of their impact on individuals and organizations. Joining me today is our co founder, Ram Gill. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Biya. Looking forward to the time we're going to spend together talking about this subject.
All right, so let's get started. So, Ram, when did you first come across the idea of comparing HR professionals to healthcare workers?
You know what? I would say that it's been, in that 4 to 6 year range, and at different times for different reasons. With my last organization, I was put through mental health first aid course, to be able to support those situations better. In fact, I could get certified to deliver that course as well. When you look at COVID times, human resources professionals were integral to work alongside resources that the company had or made available to be able to keep things calm within the workplace, be there to answer questions, help people through depression, anxiety, get them resources that could help them further. So that's something that's been playing on my mind. And I thought that this couldn't be a better time to bring it to the forefront and have a discussion on that in terms of why I view it. And I'm going to preface this that from the research I've done, I haven't come across any group or any individuals or governing bodies in HR who are doing this. And if there are, I would love to partner so that we can bring this to the forefront. From a profession standpoint, decades ago, HR fought for being at the boardroom table, and it just evolved from there in what we do. And I think we have an opportunity to take it to the next level with, are we healthcare professionals too?
Yes, that's really interesting, Ram. I can totally relate because when I was working during COVID as an HR professional, we were also like doing some, check in with our employees, checking about their mental health, like healthcare workers. And we were like involved with doing the policies for COVID, working with the health and safety managers. So I can really, relate and connect the dots between HR and healthcare workers.
And I've given a number of reasons why, and we'll talk about more, but right from your perspective as a nurse, and in my organization that I was working with at the time, in large organizations, you had nurses and resources the company made available internally or externally that are working alongside HR people to help someone, to help an employee, help their family. So there's many reasons why I feel passionate about this subject, about HR people being healthcare workers.
Yeah. And one more thing, I just remember I was again like working as an HR, but I was also doing some kind of healthcare work in my previous company. Whenever employees come to our HR and then they would seek advice about whatever symptoms they're having. So I'll be the first one to talk to them. I'm like the person in charge talking to employees, anything related to medical insurance, about contacting doctors. So yeah, I guess it's pretty much the same, like a lot of similarities.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I want to make clear is I'm not trying to infer that, HR professionals or doctors in the ER or nurses supporting a operating room, for example. Having said that, there are certain healthcare professions that are aligned with what we do. I looked up the National Occupation Code in Canada, and overall, what medical or healthcare related professions are in the healthcare stream, and social workers, psychologists, community service workers, life skills instructors are in the healthcare stream on the National Occupation Code. And when you look at, okay, what do these guys do, and what do they need to be successful? Well, they need to have good interpersonal skills. Well, similar for HR people, they provide counseling and support. I will submit to you that many HR professionals in their organizations are doing that in terms of, how do I help you through the next step? Healthcare professionals providing some kind of training and development. HR people do that as well. And for me, again, There's certain medical professionals that, are doing work that no one else can do, but there's also an arm where there's a lot of parallels as well. How do you provide that guidance and support? And the other thing is that tends to be more larger organizations. We got a lot of progressive small and medium-sized businesses that, maybe outsource certain activities that are related to wellness initiatives. And it's often within the HR department, or they're partnering, with a in-house nurse or an in-house practitioner of some sort. And it's a collaboration. And often when healthcare is being delivered, I do have a healthcare background, and it is different within the healthcare stream, different specialists or, allied health workers that are working together to help someone, and HR is no different.
I completely agree, Ram. For those new to HR or human resources, how would you describe the role HR plays in addressing workplace challenges?
They play a critical role. I'll speak for myself. If you're asking for new folks that are coming into the HR profession, and let's just say it's you're younger or you've just transitioned to an HR role, you don't often see these things. We get caught up in the textbook HR. I've got to recruit someone, I got to onboard them, I got to help the organization through performance management, all very important things. But when you take a step back, you're also helping people through tough times. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone come to my office or gave me a call and says, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with a leader. I'm struggling at home. Can you help me? Can you get me resources? I have a spouse who needs help. Can you help me? So I think as newer human resources professionals, you got to be able to see you playing that role. Now, the other thing is you need an organization that supports that and has made it important for you to do that for the well-being of your teams and your employees.
Yeah, great. That's a clear explanation, Ram. It really shows how HR, support both people and the business. Can you give us an example where HR stepped into address an early stage issue in the workplace?
Absolutely. I mean, I've got lots of examples. There are workplaces where employees are struggling because they're working for a leader that may not have the best interest of employees, where they're struggling. They're struggling to get the work done. They're struggling to get the support they need. And it can cause issues with anxiety. And, recently I talked to someone, they said, I go home, I have anxiety going to bed. When I know I got to go back to work and face this leader, I got anxiety in the morning. Like, you can just imagine what it does to that person, does to that person's family and the workplace, and then it impacts the end client or the end customer. I've been through countless times that situation. Another recent one is you've got a really, critical project happening with a company that has to go live on a date. Otherwise, it's going to have a huge cost. You got people working extensive hours. It's taken a toll on them, and they've reached out to say, "Hey, I'm burnt out. Can you help me resolve this problem?" And it's something that's real, where you have to jump in and say, how do we support this person and balance the needs of the organization and come up with some solutions? And often people don't say anything. From that perspective, when you have a trusted HR partner, you've given them every reason to trust you, the organization says, yes, we have this person here to support you, then these are things that are more possible, can be more effective, and really leads to employee engagement. That's what leads to people staying. It's all connected.
That's a really great explanation, Ram. Identifying those like simple symptoms that employees like having anxiety, burnout, those are like early stage issues in the workplace that we need to address. Similarly, in healthcare, if you identify like early signs, for example, an infection in a patient, then by catching early signs, you start giving treatment right away, then you prevent it from having more complications.
You know what? I like that you brought up that example of the infection. And one thing I work really hard when I'm doing my work, and I have a privilege as a HR consultant to organizations, is really get to the root cause. Often we're just dealing with the symptoms, we're putting band-aids on things, and just like getting to the core of an infection is, how do you get to the root cause of an issue? Because often we just don't do that. Our organizations don't realize it, or they don't want to realize it. They don't want to look in the mirror. It's easier to brush on the carpet, but it keeps on coming up. Employees that keep on dealing with it. And, Whether they leave, whether they stay, whether the product that they're producing suffers, no one wins. And on the same token, you've got progressive organizations that have got it dialed in terms of, hey, we're not going to be that company, we're not going to be that employer, we're not going to have leadership that reflects that. We want people that say we have the support from leadership from the company. So that's what's out there, and that's what HR, who has fought to have a seat at the table, now has an opportunity to transform even more. And I know you've heard me be lots of times in terms of there's tractional HR and transformational. To me, there's a huge transformation part here, and how do you empower leaders to support it? How do you have leaders to partner with HR? And executive teams or owners of a business to say, we can't afford not to do this.
So, Ram, can you mention what are the tools or methods that HR use to identify potential problems in organizations?
Absolutely. The ones that come to mind is, common doing surveys. I like to do listening exercises and ask for different things on different topics. I'll leave teams to discuss it, and then I'll come back and they'll tell me what they're talking about. And it's on the key pillars in terms of how is your work-life balance? What are some workplace challenges that you take home with you? How can we make it better? And you know what? Having HR people do it is great, but you also want to have senior leadership, executive, owners talking to their employees about this. And what I'll tell, owner operators, leaders, executives, if you're not doing this and you're not making it a focus, you're really not helping yourself. We'll go to the sales floor, we'll go to the manufacturing floor, go hit the sales department, and we'll ask about how sales are, how's our quality control. We got to take this time, step back and say, how are you? Right? How are we helping you? What more can we do? How's your leader helping, your supervisor? How are your coworkers helping? You got to be asking those questions, and you got to take time to do that. I know we've all heard this analogy before, Biya and your colleagues and the rest of our team. You know, as much as we got to be there for the customer, we're there for our team first because they got to be healthy. There, you got to be at a good place, and that's going to allow you to have a better product or service at the end of the day.
Ram, you've given us lots of insight about the methods you use. Now, how important is open communication in resolving workplace challenges?
Well, I think we all know communication for anything is important. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Extremely important. If we're talking about this subject in terms of employee wellness, HR practitioners playing that healthcare role, I'm sure you can attest to it with your experience as a nurse. Medical providers have to ask the right questions. They have to take the time. They have to make it comfortable and build rapport and trust with the individual to get what they need to take care of that person. A patient has the same obligation to provide information and convey what that person needs to know to help them. HR is no different. What I also want to share with you is I would love to tell you that all employers do a great job at this. I love to tell you that employees are comfortable to go to their supervisors. And yes, there's some companies and leaders that just do an amazing job, but there's also those that don't. And what I'll say to that is whether you have an HR department, an HR person or not, go and take the time to ask yourself, if my employees were my brother, sister, mother, cousin, working at their workplace and they needed help, what would an ideal situation look like? What support would I want them to get? And when those questions are answered, you know what you need to do for your own team. Often with organizations, well, we don't have the money, we don't have the time. Well, it doesn't always cost money, and you can make time because you'll get the ROI on it. So that's my response in terms of communication. It's absolutely critical. Give every reason for your employees to come to you. And as companies, give your leaders the knowledge, the training, and put it on their performance review, put it on their expectations that we need you to take care of the health care, the wellness of your people.
Yes, I totally agree with that. Similar in, healthcare. I've seen a lot of like communication issues, especially about when a doctor, is too busy, when communicating to its patient, and it can lead to like confusion or, a misdiagnose a symptom of a patient. So it's almost so the same working as an HR professional. Some employees like might see HR as well like intimidating and not approachable. So if they feel like HR are not approachable, they won't be able to talk more openly and finally address the issues or resolve conflict. So open communication is really 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 important.
Yeah, and one thing I want to highlight, Bia, is not every organization has the ability to have a nurse on staff or the ability to hire a third party. What I'll tell them is, firstly, there's people like myself in our organization that provides fractional services. And guess what? It doesn't always mean that you need that level of expertise. There's different ways to do research these days. There's ChatGPT that will give you the best information of how do I do this better. There's YouTube videos. Like, do something to educate yourself. Talk to a mentor, talk to people in other organizations. You know, Call me. I'll tell you what you need to do. I would be happy to do it in terms of making workplaces better. But do something. Put it down on the to-do list or a priority for the organization. Make it a thing.
Yes, talking about issues based on your experience, what happens when these issues are left unchecked?
Well, I know I've covered it off. People won't stay. They won't say good things about you as an employer. They will struggle from a mental health perspective. And there's something called presenteeism. So they may not leave, they may be present, but they're absent, and that's presenteeism. It's something that's been a buzzword in our business and in general for a number of years now. And that's a very scary place to be. People don't show up as the best coworker. They don't go home and be that family member they need to be. And it creates a lot of issues from a customer service perspective, how something is put together from a quality control perspective. And I don't know about you, but it's really hard to wake up in the morning when you don't like your job, you don't like the company, you don't like your boss. And we're also at a time where in certain professions, there's not enough jobs out there and people aren't leaving to get a better job because they need that security right now. Not in all industries, but there are a lot that's the case.
Yes, that's very true. All right, Ram, thank you so much for answering some of my questions. Now, can you share more examples of workplace challenges HR has resolved?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll share a recent one, and we were engaged by an organization to do a review of a department. It also then resulted in a 360 review of senior leadership, and folks that had quite a few direct reports. So what a 360 review is you're going to have your employees, you'll have maybe external stakeholders, different strategic partners in the business give you a review, that can be measured. And we did that. And it also resulted in us learning which leaders were truly delivering a great employee experience, driving engagement, people wanted to work with them. And there were some individuals that didn't show up well in the survey, the feedback from the employees. And it was very similar to some of the things that I talked about is, they don't want to come to work, or I can't wait to get another job. Oh, I'm not really productive at work. My coworkers are not getting what they need from me. And we were able to shine a light, and directly we were able to help the organization help, in this case, one of the two leaders to be able to, have support, a development plan where they could get to a better place. And we're in a position that we're going to measure that in the next, after 3 months to see where that person ended up. And in some cases, there was an individual that just didn't want to participate and chose to leave. That's the impact that HR professionals have, is they bring in that unbiased, um, you know, viewpoint or help to be able to help organizations through those tough situations. And you know what I'm proud of, and there's many, many, many HR professionals that are doing this work on a regular basis, where you can walk in and that you've helped create a better workplace. But when the employees and other managers come up and say, we really appreciate how HR helped us through that, we're much happier. We're going home happier. We're being more productive. I'm taking on bigger projects. I want to get promoted. It's a beautiful feeling.
Thank you so much, Ram. That's really a great story. It really shows how, HR can create real change with the right solutions.
Yeah. You know what? I do want to go back to something. I think we were talking about individuals that are maybe newer to the profession of HR. Oh, that could be a new graduate, maybe younger. It could be someone who's transitioning into an HR career like yourself, being a trained nurse and a lot of transferable skills. When it comes to this kind of work, it's not something that just happens when you're in an environment where maybe you're doing more transactional HR work. And what I would encourage some folks that maybe haven't spent some time is to get comfortable in how you can help people in this manner, right? Whether it's having a mentor that can help you through this. This is not easy work. And quite frankly, it's not for every HR professional, and they may choose to be in a certain part of HR. But when we talk about HR generalists, that are supporting maybe a small, medium-sized business. You have to put yourself in that situation and as much learning and help people through it and know that you wear that hat because if you're not able to flex that muscle, you will have employees to say, and they see you as that HR person that needs to help that person. Now, I also know you need to have an organization, a company, an owner who allows you to be able to do that work. I love to tell you that all employers will do that. Unfortunately, that's not our reality at times. And it takes a lot of courage and resilience to be able to help that organization in a different direction. I'll also tell you that organizations, whether it's, one person in HR, maybe an assistant, when you don't let them help you with all the superpowers that HR people have, and you keep on putting roadblocks up, they will leave you. They will leave you for an organization or a role that will support them to be able to deliver what HR is meant to do.
Thank you so much, Ram. So, what's one thing you'd like the listeners to remember from today's discussion?
Listeners, for HR professionals, do know that you play that role as a healthcare worker. A lot of similarities. I will tell organizations to embrace that concept and let your people help those people. And at the end of the day, if an employee um, is able to access that or feel comfortable to come to a leader, their supervisor, their manager, then stakeholders or folks have come together to be able to create that experience for the employee. That's the message I want to send. And at the same time, if you're not taking a serious look in the mirror to say, how are we doing on taking care of our employees? Please do so because that's your bread and butter. If you don't have the people, you're not going to be able to deliver on your commitments to your company, your teams, the end user, the customer, and the client.
That's a great takeaway, Ram. It really highlights the important role, of HR plays in creating healthy organizations. So, what excites you the most about HR future as the field continues to evolve?
What excites me is opportunities like this to talk about this subject. It's not something that I've heard a lot of, and I really want to take the time to move, this piece in terms of we are also healthcare workers forward. So that excites me. It excites me that there are people that are going to embrace that, and it's also the evolution of human resources professionals. We've gone, in the 50s, HR had a presence because health and safety was needed in industrial organizations. It's involved over the decades. Fast forward, whether it's financial downturns in the economy where HR people are helping people through it, to things like COVID, which we all know where support was needed from medical professionals, from government, and from HR professionals as well. So that's what I'll leave everyone with. Reflect on this topic. How does it impact you? If you're an owner operator, if you're a leader, an HR professional, what can you do to really provide the best healthcare and wellness of the people that look up to you to deliver that.
It's really exciting to see how HR, is adapting to meet those needs of modern workplaces. So we're almost at the end of today's podcast, but before we wrap up, we'd love to hear from Ram for any resources that listeners can explore to deepen their understanding of HR's role in organizational health.
Absolutely. And what I'll say is there's many resources out there when you start looking. If you're an HR professional, get a mentor that has experience on that. CPHR British Columbia Yukon has a wonderful mentorship program where they can help you get connected. They may have roundtables, different courses that you can do virtually on demand or in person. I watch a lot of YouTube videos because it's easy, it's efficient, and there's a lot of other service providers that have programs that you can do at a very low subscription basis. So what I'm trying to say is they're endless. Start looking, get help, utilize people in your circle. And also, you've got providers like us where we're able to come and support that situation and help you through that. And often it's related to other things. It's not like, hey, can you help us build a wellness program? Yeah, we can do that. But sometimes there's other things that we can kind of pull in and say, we need to kind of work on this before we can be really effective on a wellness program or how we support our people from a mental health perspective. So lots of information, lots of resources. And what I'll say is not doing anything shouldn't be an option.
Thank you so much, Ram. This has been an insightful discussion. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on whether HR professionals or healthcare workers too. And, giving us some real world examples.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you for your time as well.
Thank you, Ram. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us today. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, share it with someone who might find it valuable. And next time, we'll dive into more ways HR can transform workplaces. Until then, remember, healthy organizations create thriving teams. Bye.
See you later.